Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you some tips and some of my suggestions for the Twin Hearts pumpkin pattern. So if you're working along with this pattern, this would be a good video to watch first, just so you have a couple of my best pieces of advice to be successful while knitting this pattern, as well as finishing it. So a couple of things that I want to point out. So there's two different versions in the written pattern. You have a 2-color, which this is an example of right here. This is the medium size, and I used Coney Island and then this white yarn as my C2. So you can see here, I've finished, I've already done my decrease and I've cast off. And I have actually run my yarn tail through the cast on edge, and I'm ready to stuff it and then cinch it closed. This one over here is in a Rasta Scraps, and this is a small size. No, this is a mini size. And this one is just done with scraps. And this is, as you can tell, more than 2 colors. So we have the 2-color version, which is listed in multiple sizes. And then we have an 11-color version, which this is an example of right here. And the 11-color version, you could certainly use more than just 2 colors for the mini, the small, or the large size as listed in the PDF. You would just have to substitute, different C1s and C2s as you go through. And there is a chart in the document as well. So hopefully that's helpful in planning your colors, whether you're using 2 or 4 colors or up to 11 different colors. This is such a good project for scraps. So a couple things that I want to talk about. First one is going to be, as you're working, when you're using scraps, what I like to do typically, and I'll show you guys the inside here so you can see what this craziness is looking like. Every time I join a new color, what I do to join, and I have a tutorial on this as well, but I like to just knot my new color to my existing color, and then I'll begin working with it. And then when I'm finished, what I'll do is I'll just knot those two together. So I would go back through on the wrong side or on the inside of the work and just give those like a quick knot together, and that's just going to secure them in place so that where your join is, you won't have any gaps or any stitches that are maybe pulled too loose. So go through, and that's something that I would do when I'm done. I would turn it inside out and just knot all of those yarn tails together. And the beautiful thing about pumpkins is that those are all going to be hidden in the inside. If this were a beanie, it'd be a little harder to hide those, but you'd have to weave them all in, which would be quite a lot of work. So I would go through, knot those as you're working on your project. After you finish, like let's say I get through with C2 and I'm on to C3 and C4, I can then cut the C1 and the C2 color and just leave that small tail. So that way I'm not like carrying a whole bunch of other strands of yarn as I'm working. So once you finish the last round of that color, you could then cut that yarn. So that's just a little tip for while you're knitting. Let's see. So I'm going to show you guys on this one here a little bit of a difference. You'll notice in the pattern, the cast on edge, which is this edge here, as I'm knitting, it's going to be down here, right? So when I'm finished, the cast on edge is written to be the top of your pumpkin. And the reason I wrote it that way, and I do this for all my pumpkins, is because the bottom has a decrease. This is where you cast off. It's less loops to have to close up for the bottom of your pumpkin. Whereas at the top, we have more loops, but we have that stem in there. So when you do close this up, it's a little bit easier to cinch it closed completely because you have that stem in there taking up a little bit more space. Now, with that being said, if you want the cast on edge to be the bottom of your pumpkin, you could certainly do that. So I just want to show you, and this is also in the PDF as well, the flipped versus the not flipped look. So you'll notice once I'm done, I'm going to flip my pumpkin. This is the cast on edge. This will be the top of my pumpkin, and you'll notice that the little accent hearts are upside down. When you've stuffed your pumpkin, you know, they'll end up looking right side up here, but on the side, they're gonna look upside down. Now, if you decide to not flip, and let's say I didn't close this up all the way, I just cinch it closed, and then I cinch up and close the cast on edge down here completely after stuffing, then this would be the top of my pumpkin. The only thing about this is you don't have those hearts at the top. Now the ones on the side are going to be right side up, but I just really liked the look of having that first section of those Fair Isle hearts on the top of my pumpkin. Now you could choose to flip it if you want, or not flip it if you want, but if you're following along with the pattern, you'll have the cast on edge at the top for the top of your pumpkin. All right, so just a little view there of flipped versus not flipped. All right, so the edge that you're closing up from the original cast on will end up being the top, should end up being the top. All right, so this one is ready to be stuffed. And I just wanted to talk about one more thing quickly, and that is indents. Now, obviously you could stuff this and you could just leave it rounded. I have some video tutorials linked as well and on my YouTube channel for how I create the indents in my pumpkins. So if you're going to be making indents, it's really up to you where you place those indents. So when you're finished, you've stuffed it, you've added your stem, you've secured it, and now you're ready to use that extra long yarn tail. Like you can see, I've left for this one here a pretty long yarn tail. All right, so I would use this tail to make the indents on this one. And you can see here, I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 indents. All right, so what I like to do when I'm making my indents is just kind of take a piece of yarn or use my fingers and sort of divide and make kind of like a guideline, you know, visually for myself where I want to start dividing those up. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make 4 sections. You can make it into 5 sections with 5 different indents. You could do more. It's really up to you how you choose to do it. My one piece of advice for your indents would be to try to hide the join. All right, so your first indent, I would place your first indent wherever the join was, wherever the beginning and end of each round in your work was, because you'll notice, unless you knit in a jogless way in the round, you'll notice that the join here, I have a little bit of a jog, and the stitches are just a little bit wonky. Now, I don't mind that. Some people do. I don't mind. I can't be bothered to knit a jogless join when I'm knitting. So what I do is I just plan for my first indent to go along that join right there, and it'll just hide that. It'll make it so that that is hidden in here and you won't even notice, and the rest of your pumpkin's looking to look amazing. All right. Real pumpkins in real life are not perfect, right? The little plumps are a little bit different sizes, and that's okay. And it does take a little bit of practice, but my advice, after you've stuffed it and you're starting your indents, make the first one across that join just to kind of hide that little bit of a jog there. All right, so hopefully you guys found this helpful as you're starting out or as you're finishing your pumpkin. And I hope you guys are really enjoying this pattern because I love it. It's so fun. It's perfect for scraps and it's such a cozy one. So happy knitting and hope you guys enjoy.